and welcome to the 100th episode of Reiki Women Podcasts. It's been a long while, and we have today the regular ladies and a special guest as well. So let me go through the regulars. Who we've got? We've got Michaela Daystar. Hello, Michaela from Heartscapes. We've got Carrie Varela from the Reiki Healing Society. And our special guest for the day is Janet Dobbs. Now, Janet, tell us a bit about your business, just to get us going. Who you
Okay, sure. The name of my business is Animal Paradise Communication and Healing, and the healing part has to do with Reiki with animals. So that's all.
Yeah, well, that's all. That was just too easy. And Janet does a whole bunch of stuff on YouTube. We'll find out more as we go along. But, Janet does a whole bunch of stuff with YouTube, and she's got the Animal Cafe, haven't you? And anyway, a bunch of things which we will hear about. So what we wanted to start today off with our 100th episode, I guess we could do a little bit of a retrospective. We sort of try to do this at the beginning. We did at the beginning of the year, but this is a special point for us because we didn't know we'd get this far, I guess, is part of that story. And when we first started, we had, multiple ideas about what we were going to do and how we were going to do it. And we've sort of honed that as we've gone along. So when we first started, I did all these snapshots. I was just looking, I think I did about 25 snapshots of people. And Janet, I interviewed you and, different women in the system of Reiki and doing different things. And I know Carrie and Michaela also did some interviews. So, we were sort of bringing in people and the different things that people have done. But at the same time, we were also doing weekly podcasts between the three of us. And those podcasts have sort of taken over and have been a great joy to do. And we have honed that. We never deliberately tried to do anything specific. We tried to work quite spontaneously, I guess, and to see how we could bring in our own experiences and throw them into the circle and see what would come out of that in the podcast itself. So we don't organize things very well. That's not a negative thing. It's a positive thing in this situation. And, we've just tried to bring in parts of ourselves and really bare ourselves, be honest, and bring up things that have come up for us in relation to the system of Reiki or have come up with our clients or our students and thrown them into the circle and seen what evolves out of that. A lot of our podcasts between the three of us have been an hour long or rounds of, up to an hour long, I should say. And recently we've done some shorter ones for 20 minutes, so like a Q&A thing. So we're always willing to be flexible, try new things. And we've enjoyed bringing people into that in whatever way we possibly can, if only through their questions and their thoughts that we bring up in the podcast themselves. So today we are very blessed to have with us, as I said, Janet. And Janet has, as I said, been interviewed by us and been there along the way. So I met Janet way back in 2007. And we were just talking about that. Janet is, as I said, a YouTube whiz, but there is a reason why she is this whiz. And it's because she is very technical and she's just got it all going. And that's because her job was, now tell us again, Janet, because I can't remember all of that. What were you doing? You were working for whom?
Before many of us, especially we females, reinvent ourselves as life goes on at the different stages of life. So that was a past life for me. I was a television broadcast engineer and I did some engineering things, but a lot of just like I did studio audio inside, not outside. I was a video editor, things like that, behind the scenes. I loved making people look and sound good and creating the pieces. And I'm based right now, I live in Northern Virginia, outside of Washington, D.C. So the places that I was working when I met you, Bronwen, was the Little News Bureau, CBS Little News Bureau in Washington, and then NBC both a network and local. And the funny thing, we were chatting before you got, before we got started, and kind of going down memory lane. In 2007, I met you and took a shepherding class and went from Washington to New York City with two of my friends. And it totally changed my life, not just, what I learned. And I, I was a freelancer at the time, and I had taken 5 days off, two days, travel days. And I came back, and as a freelancer, you always take a chance that you won't be on the schedule. And when I came back, I was not on the work schedule. And so I called up the next week. Am I on the schedule? No. I was like, oh, okay, that's a really good punishment. I've only worked for the company for 30 years, really. And then I called back again. So third week, no, you're not on the schedule. And my husband finally said, just go full time with your animal work. And I was like, okay, fine. And so literally Reiki and meeting Bronwen literally changed my life, not only in my spiritual Reiki practices, but my career.
Yeah. So amazing, isn't it? Like the system of Reiki can just
Mm.
throw everything around. I love what you just said at the beginning there about women reinventing themselves. That is so true, because just even today, it is incredibly hard being a mum. I'm talking to Carrie and Michaela here, because they've just both been talking about, just even getting here today, having kids. It's just so difficult. And yet when you get to my stage and to Janet's stage in life, we are very fortunate in that the kids have flown, and we actually have the benefit to take advantage of time and to really put that out there. And I think for many women, that's a different story to men, to be honest. And even in this day and age where we think there is this equality and blah, 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 blah. I mean, Michaela's a single mum, and, Carrie's got two kids that she has her hands full in the holidays. So, it is true. It's been a blessing to be able to have the time now for me to be able to spend to do this. With this particular podcast, I get to edit it, put it together, do all those things, and you wouldn't have that time otherwise. So it is a blessing that we have that, but it is also an interesting reflection upon Reiki and women. So, guys, I hope Carrie and Michaela, you okay? I know you've been rushing around with your kids like lunatics.
We're doing good. I appreciate naming the many facets of life that come together. And I feel really grateful that working with the system of Reiki and then making that my business, taking that real risky move to move in that direction, coming out of so many years working in university. Still absolutely a challenge running my own business and, working for myself. And yet it provides this really dynamic life where I can have a podcast filming scheduled at 3:30 and picking my kid up at 3:30 and can jump on the phone to check in with y'all right before as I'm driving home. And there's, sometimes this franticness that comes in to that, but at the same time, it's so flexible, right? There's so much structure that has been put into place over a long period of time that allows for such great flexibility. And it's really an unseen blessing that, I wasn't focused on when I made this choice, but has absolutely come forward as bringing a lot of joy and dynamics to my life. And I love hearing Janet, your version of that, like where circumstance and, certain structures that were in your life were holding you well enough that you could be incredibly flexible in really a short period of time, right? 3 weeks is not a long time to make a major life decision like that. And I'm really inspired by it. One of the things that felt important to us as we approached this 100th episode was to engage directly with our audience and to really have audience to audience community development. We get to do that in our Facebook group a little bit. We get to do that in the comment section of the YouTube version of this podcast a little bit. But we're really grateful to, get to have one of our community members here with us just to chat about what it is meant to be on this journey, in this lifestyle, in this choice to make Reiki our life. And so thank you, Janet, so much for joining us for this conversation today. And Carrie, you had a really lovely point of focus for us for today. Speaking of structure and flexibility, firm and flexible, you had a really beautiful kind of point of focus that came forward to you. And I'd love to invite you to introduce that for us.
Yeah. Well, before I do that, I just also want to express so much gratitude, Janet, for being here, and to my co-hosts, Bronwen and Michaela. It's just been a real journey to do this work with you, and I think it's so nourished by all of us. Like I as a mom, I have 5-year-olds. Like I don't have time to edit a podcast and do all the little tech things to get it out there. And so Bronwyn does that and is like kind of is the labor coach getting it out to the world, which I so appreciate. And we've also been a really wonderful check and balance for each other. Just by coming up and not being too perfectionist about the conversations we're having, the topics we have. It's really just about coming together and being spontaneous, and also just listening to each other. And I think that's what makes one of the things about our podcast really unique, is that we have these really heartfelt, meaningful conversations. That's a good segue into the topic for today, is the spirit of Reiki, and how has podcast illuminated something about the spirit of Reiki that has just been meaningful to you. And so I'm going to answer that question, and I'd love to hear from you all, like how has this podcast helped you understand Reiki better? And I've been kind of perusing through some of our past episodes, and gosh, well, there's so many good ones, but I think I really enjoyed the lineage of Reiki, that episode. And I thought that was it's like a good example of us coming together and really tackling difficult questions, and being willing to look at difficult questions, to look at the light and dark of things, and to try to discover our own truths. And we might come out of that inquiry at different ends. But I think that episode was just really a good example of how we can kind of talk through an issue, point out some of the good points and the bad points, and ultimately, see how that changes our relationship, in this case, to lineage. And I know that episode has really stuck with me and really kind of marinated inside of me. And I've thought a lot about how my work is really a reflection of lineage, yet also taking my own power from that and being able to really, inside of that confine, maybe perhaps of lineage, I still choose to be my full self. And I think that's something so beautiful about Reiki, is that we can take from all of these people who brought Reiki to us, whether it be Su Sensei or Hayashi Sensei, Takata Sensei, and some of my teachers on the path, including Bronwen and many others, and take, the essence of what they gave to us, and yet still make it ours in the most authentic way possible. And I think everybody in the world of Reiki is aiming to do that in some way or another. And of course, we all have different ways that we express our Reiki. But that was one episode that I think was it just stuck with me for a while, and I think helped me understand Reiki a little bit better. So I'd love to turn it over to you. Who would like
Well, and for those of you who'd like to follow along with this conversation, that episode on the importance or not of lineage was episode number 89 a few weeks ago. So Janet, I'd love to pitch it over to you and ask what has stood out for you and in what way your relationship with the spirit of Reiki
Mm.
has intersected with your relationship with this community and this space and just whatever else has come up for you.
Ooh, so many things. So you have a few hours. I'm teasing. um, gosh, I mean, I've seen the evolution of the Reiki Women's Podcast, and it's just been a joy to watch, because I've just been I come and go, but, and then to be able to look at all the topics now, it's like, wow, okay, this is just so fantastic because there are so many wonderful topics to talk about. Um, the spirit of, the spirit of Reiki, that's a beautiful, beautiful topic. And you mentioning the episode, I didn't see this one or listen to it. I watch. But the lineage, I want to go back and really listen to that because I think that's a really interesting conversation. And that's one thing I love that you guys are doing is having these beautiful conversations and just getting the topics out there. I love to go deep, with different conversations. For me, I kind of was looking through your long list of 100 episodes. Congratulations! I mean, this is something to really celebrate. I have confetti, but I don't want to. If that's not appropriate, I'm not going to confetti you guys. But oh, I can. Okay,
Go for it, Janet. Come on.
Okay. Wait. I gotta find it.
Whiz.
Oh, here we go. This is congratulations, you guys, on.
There we go. Very nice. Very nice.
Yay. I just really am so happy for you all, but also grateful, happy for me and everybody that listens and watches, because I get something different out of each episode. And the one that called to me, because of what I do, I work with animals. So when I teach Reiki or practice Reiki, I always invite animals, whether they want to show up or not. So just always letting them, decide what they want to do. And this is my Luna, but she's right behind me. So she gets her own little camera, but she's doing her own thing, right? So the one
One of
that
my cats is Luna also. I've got a Luna. She's right over there.
a Luna tuna.
A Luna kitten too, yeah.
Oh, but the one that really, they all called me for different reasons, but one that just made me stop and go, hey, I just really want to listen to this a bunch of times and just see what comes out of it, was the one you did for Earth Day about nature.
Yeah.
And I really love so many aspects of what you all talked about, what you practice, just our Reiki, spiritual energy, right? And it's all, and the things you were talking about in that episode was how some of the different people in Japan, the practices, they go out into nature and they become one with nature. Well, aren't we one with everything anyhow? But we forget, right? We have this great forgetter. But all of the things you were talking about when it came to that is like, oh, I came to Reiki. First, I learned and was a professional animal communicator. And I saw some people kind of playing with energy, but I was like, what are you guys doing? And they're like, Reiki. And I'm like, what? They were playing with energy, that's what they were doing. But they said, we're doing Reiki. And I was like, and this was in like the 1990s. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't know what it is, but you guys seem really happy. But it's all about the energy, and we already are this, but we forget, we are spiritual energy. And that particular episode just went into the depths of nature and our connection, because we're so disconnected. And one of the things you said is, for people that live in cities or they live in a place where they can't get outside, look out a window. Hopefully they do have a window, but maybe their window looks out onto a wall. But to be able to get outside. And one of the things you guys talked about was walking on the ground, and we don't do that. And I can't remember which one of you said you like to take your shoes off and feel your feet on the ground. And there was I can't remember, but some study that was done somewhere by some bunch of people that what's happening, there's many things happening with our physical, emotional bodies because of the time we're living in. And we're so detached and bombarded with so much stuff that 100 years, 200 years ago, people didn't have. Walking on the ground before the invention of rubber or the synthetic soles that we have on our shoes, it was leather. So I'm not going to say the right words, but just say the energy of the earth went into the bottoms of our feet and into our bodies. And wearing the kind of shoes that most of my shoes are synthetic bottoms. So we're not getting the kind of nurturing energy from Mother Earth that our ancestors, not that many generations back, were naturally receiving. So I loved hearing that you guys were, at least one or two of you were taking your shoes off, walking barefoot, and getting that beautiful Mother Earth energy. So I'll stop now, but I could, you guys just really, I love you guys so much.
So, that's that feeling, that connection, isn't it? It's like we're trying to stop ourselves all the time from feeling that connection and being a part of, and maybe it's that trying to control things to keep. If we can control things, we think that it's all going to be okay, but it's sort of the opposite, isn't it? We need to let go into all of that and really be in that natural flow and get the benefit and the love and the all those beautiful right things that the body needs. Yeah, it's very beautiful. Thank you, Janet.
And that episode, that Earth Day episode on the connections between Reiki and nature, was episode 84. If you'd like to go back and check it out, back in April.
I have a favorite. Well,
tell us, Bronwen.
I was looking back through it. I also liked the lineage one a lot, Carrie. That was one that I really liked too. And I liked, what I liked about the lineage one is just the no bullshit. And I think that's what we try to do, right? Yeah. Anyway, so the one that I picked out was when our teachers fall from their pedestals. And if anything, I just like the heading of that. I mean, it's just cool, right? And what I really appreciated about that was that we have there are multiple different perspectives that you can take on that subject. And, there's no point being judgmental about anybody or anything. And that's really what it comes down to. But it doesn't mean that it's it's that thing that it doesn't mean that something is right. And so, it's sort of, I think this was just you and me, Michaela, and I think it was very much about bringing things back to to your own self and really trying to get it right here and seeing how the rest of the world falls into place around that. But I thought it was such an interesting topic because we often hear about, teachers who are doing things that people are really unhappy about. And how do we deal with that? And how does that feel for us? And that can be really hurtful for us. We can feel hurt, but is that us or is it them? And, there's a whole world of subject in that. And I thought that was a really great discussion on that subject, and something very relevant to all of us as teachers and all of us as failing human beings at the same time.
Yeah.
Hello, Carrie. She's back again.
I'm back. I love that episode too. I wasn't on it. I wasn't there that day, but I love that you guys went for it and talked about just an incredibly important topic.
Yeah.
In the world of spiritual energy, in the world of spiritual communities, and just in general, I think we don't, thinking today about the teachers that I really honor and admire in my life. And I've been thinking a lot about gratitude because I'm working and collaborating with somebody about doing a gratitude journey, and thinking about nature of gratitude and teachers, and maybe spending one day thinking about those teachers, and giving gratitude for what they've taught me. But it's so hard to see our teachers, as real human fallible people, and also the devastating challenges that can happen
We just died again.
Oh, you just died again.
Sometimes we need your help again.
Oh, okay. All right.
Well, and that's actually a beautiful segue into my favorite episode. So the episode, so I'll bookmark that, but the one that you were just talking about around teachers and our human fallibility, that first of all was episode 83. And when I was thinking about, what were the episodes, the conversations that we had that felt like it connected me the most with the spirit of Reiki. I love that framing. There were kind of two different directions that my mind went. And I often talk about Reiki, like the framing of Reiki, that it's a system that allows us to live our lives grounded, spacious, and connected, aligned with the three diamonds, our groundedness, our spaciousness, our connectedness. And, when I think about that episode, talking about, human fallibility and what do we do when our teachers, behave in ways that can be painful, and how do we hold them in both accountability and love, and how do we use that as a reflection on ourselves to do our own work. The idea of Reiki, as the spirit of Reiki, as bringing a sense of spaciousness really came forward, because what we so often need in those moments is enough space and a feeling that we're big enough to hold all of the emotions, all of the conflicting thoughts. What could be more conflicting than, somebody that teaches me, that I look up to, that I want to be like, who's been a major point of guidance in my life, and then they do something that is painful to myself or to others, maybe a lot of others. We need to have enough room inside of ourselves to hold that. And I think part of why we can get into really, toxic responses to things like that, where we either throw away the humanity of the person or ignore the harm that they're doing, right? Those are two extreme responses that can happen when we're too uncomfortable with that. These really toxic responses come from a sense that there's not enough room to hold these opposites, that they can't possibly both exist in the same person or in my own thoughts about the same person. And similarly, as far as spaciousness, some of my favorite conversations have been the ones where there's been a little bit of tension or a little bit of disagreement, or the topic itself was a bit charged. And two of the ones that have come up today, lineage and this piece around our teachers, had some charge to them. Yeah. There's been others where we've talked about integrity, we've talked about spiritual appropriation, that have had some charge to it, topics that in other spaces I've been in sometimes contentious conversations with folks about. There's been times in the podcast when we've, disagreed with each other. And, it warms my heart and gives me a chuckle sometimes, Bronwen. We'll have a point of disagreement, amongst us, and you'll often say, gosh, I don't want to disagree with you, or I'm sorry to bring tension to this, right? And I always say, no, it's good when we disagree. It's good when we can hold a more spacious view of what Reiki is, because it's, we're dynamic and we're different. I appreciate that this is a space where we can disagree with each other and also respect and love each other. Because isn't that the way that we would want to see things happen out in the world? But bringing it down to a specific episode, I wanted to go in another direction. And it's actually episode 82. So we've now talked about 82, 83, 84, and I think 89. This was a potent month, right? This was a good month for the podcast, whatever that month was. So 82 was around the way that Reiki interacts with our parenting. And what it means to, be a parent and a Reiki practitioner, how those things intersect. And I love, Carrie, that your son popped onto our podcast right in that moment as I was about to talk about this episode, because a lot of what we talked about in that episode was the way in which the spirit of Reiki influences the way that we interact with our children and the ways that we see ourselves as parents. And I'll return again to this map of this structure of being grounded, spacious, and connected. These are three characteristics, three qualities of being and of feeling that are essential to me as a parent, and that I would offer are incredibly important for others as parents. And that the spirit of Reiki has really infused itself in my identity as a parent in ways that truly have changed me as a parent. I did, let's see, I was parenting for at least 14 years before I had any encounter with the system of Reiki. And then I have been parenting for 10 years after that, since I found the system of Reiki. And they are very different parents. It's two very different moms. In a lot of ways, in part because I was much younger, and obviously we all change over that period of time. But I can see the stark differences in how I relate to my kids, how I relate to my role, how I manage my big feelings about parenting. Again, back to spaciousness, having enough room inside to hold all of the shenanigans that happen in the context of parenting, some of which are incredibly scary, some are terrifying, some are heartbreaking. And that's part of what we talked about in that episode, is just how much of a blessing and a really pragmatic, practical in a lot of ways, as well as mystical and magical, presence Reiki has been in our identities as parents. And for me, I think that's probably I would say my identity and my role as a parent, and my identity and my role as a gardener are the two places where the spirit of Reiki is most alive, most visibly, obviously alive for me, in my life. And of course, there's a lot of parallels to parenting and gardening, the caring for tender, vulnerable life, the taking on of that responsibility. So episode 82, that relationship between parenting and the system of Reiki, was what jumped out to me. And again, that month, y'all, episodes 82, 83, and 84 apparently had it going on, because those three really jumped out to this panel of folks. And I recommend you circle back and take another listen, or a first look if you haven't seen them already.
I was just thinking as you're talking there, the similarities between parenting and teaching, because, I was talking about the teaching episode. And, sometimes it's that thing that, as a teacher, I don't think of myself as a parent, but, as a parent, I am so blessed to be a parent, because I learn about my parents, for example, and as a teacher, when we're teaching, we also start to learn more about what it means for our teachers. And, if we're talking about people failing or whatever, that when we're experiencing that role ourselves, how we can then, it helps us to grow. And that's one of the wonderful things about being a Reiki teacher or a Reiki practitioner as well, just taking on those extra roles, those extra responsibilities, and finding them just reverberating throughout our lives.
Yeah. I would love to, Janet, ask and circle back to you and a little bit put you on the spot. I would love, and maybe this is actually a question for all of us. So not just to put you on the spot, Janet. But I think I'd love to open the question to all of us, as we look into our next 100 episodes, as we look out into the vast frontier of the next cycle of 100 episodes. Where do we want to see this conversation going? What are the topics or perspectives or experiences or something else? Art, music, what else wants to be explored in this platform, in this space, or re-explored, right? What might we want to circle back around to? So I'd love to just open that up. If anybody has anything on your heart that you're excited to dive into in the future or to hear about, I think this would be a great time to put that on the table.
Well, since you put me on the spot, a whole bunch of things just popped in. I would love to see you guys circle back with almost any topic. There were some like, I'd like to just, if you wanted me to tell you which ones that, really, I would love to hear about. I think I need some time to sit with that and really go through each one because there's so many yummy topics. And to be able to, you do the little surface chat. Yeah. Let's delve deeper and get really rich. Like you guys are not afraid to, have that conflict or disagreement. And I think that's one thing that's missing nowadays is, people are afraid to do what used to be very open and accepted in good discussion. Is you'd have the opposites and we weren't people pleasing. Well, okay. So going back to like, I don't know. I was thinking of like the Greeks or the Romans were the great philosophers and they'd have their students all around them, but they'd have these deep, yummy discussions, right? And go really deep. I don't know if that excites you guys. I think it does. It does me. I love talking with somebody who all of a sudden we're going into the spirit of things, and that's what Reiki is. It's a spiritual energy and it's the deep stuff inside of us that can be scary. So that was one thought. And you mentioned music. I'm like, I'm all down for that. My first degree was in music. And music is, Reiki, why not? Music is kind of spiritual energy, also a universal language, that everybody understands. And that same thing could be said about Reiki in a different way. It's energy and music, whatever form it, okay, some of it's not really music, but anyhow. And art, being able to express yourself in an art. I'm not an artist, but, to be able to express through art. And then I see those as really great possible topics for you all in the future. And maybe, I don't know if you guys are open to this and you can edit this out if you want. But having a little more interaction with with people like me, not whether it's like this, but I don't know if you guys know that on YouTube, you can do a premiere. So put your podcast up as a premiere, and then we can all come together and chat in the chat while the thing's going on. And it might get a little more interaction and bring the community together in a whole different kind of way. Just a thought.
Yep.
Just
sounds like a good idea.
But
I love that idea. And I do that with I have a YouTube series that is quasi podcast like, and I often set it as a premiere and have some chats as it's going on. So I think that's a really good suggestion. Thank you.
Yeah, I would show up.
Awesome.
As long as you bring a cat, everyone has to bring a cat.
Oh, okay. Or
I feel like cats is an episode. As far as I'm concerned, the star of the show is the cats. There's always a cat in some. I've joked that I want to, have an intern sometime, like put together a cat blooper reel of all the cat interruptions. So I'm just I'm always the one tracking our potential topics, and I'm adding cats to her.
Cats. Oh gosh, yes. Well, we could do one of those premiere things and invite everyone to bring their cats.
Yes.
How about that? And we make it a cat episode.
That would be so fun. You guys, that would be really, really fun. And as a premiere, so I would just be writing in the chat.
But we want to see your cat. Or can you take snapshots and add it in or something like that?
Well, you would have to edit that. No. But you could have, so interaction, you want to engage your audience, right? And we want to be engaged as the audience. So maybe you could say ahead of time, send us a picture of your kitties. And maybe you could have a theme with Reiki. For me, I had a kitty named Reiki. He went on the wings of Reiki, but his name was, he was Rudy. I know. Yeah. But he really took me deep into my meditation practice. He was the only lap cat that we have ever had. He was, he was living in the dumpster of my father's assisted living facility, and he came to be with us for 5 years. And he would get on my lap, and he was almost 20 pounds. That was his real weight. Wow. 18 pounds was normal, 20 was a little overweight, but he was hot. And so he'd get on my legs and there would be this heat. So automatically, the energy's coming right down to, and he would put his some part of him right on the horror center. Anyway, and then that heat would come, and then he would be like, and then this is how to ground with Mother Earth, 4 feet on the ground, right? And just, he took me to depths that I'd never experienced. I mean, horses have taken me to those kinds of places, but it was every day. It was every day. And so there's so many potential, possibilities. But you could definitely have people send in pictures of their kitties.
I think that's a really
with
great.
Reiki.
Yeah, thank you, Janet. How about that?
I've got it down. Cat appreciation episode, live premiere.
Okay.
What is a Reiki woman without a cat?
No proper witch.
My cat,
Without a
as to
cat.
go with what you were saying, Janet, my cat, she doesn't do it anymore, but as a kitten, she would sleep on my head, or right above my head, and we had to share a pillow. And that was right, I don't know, I mean, it was kind of my middle years of doing Reiki, but we would go to transcendental cosmic spaces together.
Mhm.
And it was just, I mean, even to say that's kind of joking. It did feel that way, but it also felt like this just tremendous light at my head.
Mhm.
And we were both just sitting in that and experiencing it, and feeling it, and that we were there with it together. We don't talk about our dogs in last show, but I also have a dog, and my dog I don't know how it's happened. He's almost 12 now, and he has become completely psychic, and he can just tell me almost instantly what he wants. And also, even if I think with him, I literally think about how am I going to fit this into the day. Me. like peanut butter on bread, just waiting for me. Take him on. And I'm like, I didn't even say a word to you. You just somehow plucked that out of my mind. So.
Oh, but that's telepathic communication. And we all
Yeah.
do it. We're born with it, just like we're born with healing, right? We do it naturally, whether you've studied how to, telepathically communicate with your animals or not. We do it naturally. And all of y'all are mothers. So when people say, well, how do you do that? Well, you can't do that. And well, are you a mother or father? How did you know that your nonverbal child needed that cry or that noise or whatever they made they needed to be changed? They were hungry, they're happy, they're tired, whatever. And some people just say, well, I don't know. I just know. That's it. That deep sense of knowing that, comes down from your gut or your horror center.
Yeah.
That's it.
So
So
a whole other
that's so
episode
cool.
on communication. Have you on?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have.
There we go.
I was just thinking, we actually, when Janet was going to come on, I thought, do you know, we actually haven't done an animal one, have we? Have we?
Oh, and you have to.
No, I think it's kind of threaded through a lot of our episodes, but not one explicitly on animals. So I'm getting that on our list.
There you go.
And you all have. I mean, and it's not just. I'm sorry, I'm laughing. I'm having a conversation with myself. I'm sorry. But it's not just about dogs and cats and horses and the normal, birds, hamsters, whatever, bunnies. I had a rabbit. It's not just about those animals that we can, work with Reiki, but I lost my thought. So go ahead, Bronwen, you're giggling.
No, I'm sorry. That was probably me going, because I just remembered about the owl. Did you see the picture of me with that owl? Far out. So there's people who were staying here. They rang me and they said, oh, can you come out? On another property nearby, there is an owl hanging here off the fence. And I thought, okay, I don't know anything about owls, right? So I get my fireplace gloves on, like this, those big long gloves, and go out there, wire snippers, and there's this owl and it's hanging there like this, and barbed wire. I don't know if you have barbed wire where you live, but I do not have barbed wire, but this property had barbed wire. It is a curse. It's only there to hurt animals, right? So anyway, it's hanging there and it's obviously got a barb stuck in its way. It's just hanging. It's got no energy left. And I arrive, and owls can move their heads like 360 degrees or whatever, right? So it's got its head, and I arrive, and its head just swivels like, it was the most amazing thing. And this face just looked at me like this. And this is exactly what you're just talking about, Janet. And it was just like, I'm not going to move. Just come and get me off this freaking fence. Yeah. You've seen me. Yeah. And so, there was a few of us, we went over, cut the fence, put it down, cut the barb on either side. I picked it up, I held it, took it with me. We got a professional bird person to come, and they said you should never go anywhere near an owl because they're raptors and they could rip the shit out of you with their beaks and their claws, and they're one bird that you should not go near. And I was like, well, it was amazing. This bird, it just looked at me too. When I held it in my arms, it just, the whole time, its eyes just looked straight into my eyes. It was just like, please, 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 please. It was the most amazing thing. So beautiful. And, it's just, there was no fear, there was nothing, because, well, I didn't know to be fearful to start with. That's probably a good thing. But, just that communication and being there for another animal, such a gorgeous, wonderful thing. And of course,
So friends, that was a preview of our future episode on animals, animal communication, and cat appreciation posts. So stay tuned for all that magic and more. So friends, as we get to the end of our time for this conversation, I wonder if there's any final thoughts on the spirit of Reiki and how the spirit of Reiki has moved through this community and this space, and anything else that's on your heart as we close.
Well, I guess I can just share that I just feel so grateful to have been on this journey with everyone, and how much it's meant for me. I feel like for so long within Reiki, I just really struggled to connect with other practitioners, and have a way, an outlet to share my point of view, my experiences within Reiki. And this has been such an outlet for that. And gosh, I don't know how many times I thought about how tremendously healing that has been in and of itself, is just to be able to share about all these experiences that I've had, to be with others who've had similar ones, or kind of face the same challenges, and their point of view, both of your point of view. So I'm just, that's the gratitude. And I think it just shows how, when we really want something, we find a way to manifest it. And I feel like Reiki has always been kind of the wind underneath my wings to help me manifest the things that really, really matter to me in my life. So.
But I know that all three of you are very involved with the bringing other people into communication and with the system of Reiki, discussion through YouTube or whatever, different practices that you're doing. And I personally always feel quite challenged with that. And it's something that I really appreciate. And it's really something that I have to work very hard at to make myself do that. Just, as a personal thing, I find it challenging. And so it gives me great joy to be able to have succeeded to at least 100 episodes of doing this together. And I feel like it has helped me to be a more open person, possibly, especially within this practice, and talking about it. And I've loved the inspiration that it has given me, which I otherwise would not have had. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I absolutely echo both of those sentiments. And it's poignant to hear you say that, Bronwen, because I really feel like you, for me, have been a force of connection, right? And you really brought this podcast into being. You really have kept us on track in a lot of ways, and spearheaded, efforts to build community around this, to build a practitioner group, which we're going to circle back around to in another form at some point. And so, it's a poignant reminder to us that sometimes things that we feel like we struggle with, or that don't come naturally to us, that we feel other people maybe do better, oftentimes those are the places that we can really shine because they matter to us. We care about it and it feels difficult. And so there's a way in which that can propel us to shining in those areas. And I actually see you as somebody who shines in the area of connecting community, even though at the same time we're spacious enough to hold that we might actually feel the opposite of that. So we can be many things at once.
We can.
And Janet, I just want to thank you and you as a representative of our listening audience, of our community, the people who've been in conversation with us in so many forms over this journey, and hopefully will continue to be. Thank you so much for being here, for having this conversation, for bringing your own reflections on the work that we've been doing. It's so valuable to me to hear how this work lands for other people. Doing things on the internet, it can feel like you're, crying into the void sometimes. And so to hear that reflected back as having had value for folks is always really precious to me. And to get to be face to face with folks sharing that, and then bringing your own really amazing ideas and the work that you're doing in the world, the incredibly brave, way in which you stepped into that work is an inspiration for me that helps me want to keep having these conversations. So thank you so much for being with us.
I feel really, I don't want to get the last word, but I want to thank you all, that beautiful gratitude, and thank you all for doing what you're doing. So for being brave and stepping into what was unknown when you took your first steps 100 episodes ago. Yay, let's celebrate that. I mean, really think back, and you should even do maybe a podcast about that, like reflecting back on where you were 100 episodes again, or maybe you'll do that when you have a year. But I think that might be a kind of a cool topic to talk about. And then, anyhow, I just want to, I'm so grateful to be able to represent all of the amazing people that are out there listening and watching your program and the Reiki Women's Podcast, and all of the great possibilities, and taking things, deep, but also just relating to us where we are, where we are in the moment. And I'm just so happy that this is here, and you guys have inspired me, because I've been kind of in a place where I'm like, stuck. And it's like, you guys are such an inspiration and proof, it's like, we can do this. You are doing it. You're living proof. You took a chance, you stepped in, you faced your fear. A lot of the things that Reiki teaches us, you held the space, you're doing it, and you're living, your true selves, and bringing your beautiful, beautiful lights out to the world. So thank you all so much.
Thank you, Janet. Oh, well, thank you so much for saying all those beautiful, everybody's saying such beautiful things. It's always nice to say beautiful things to each other. I do love that. And so thank you, lovely women. And, one point I just kept coming up throughout this Reiki Women Podcast, Voices for Women, but a podcast for men and women and anybody else, right? So, it's there for everybody. It's not about exclusion, it's about inclusion, and it's about giving women more voice. So, I hope that, part of that the world out there is that they are, how do I say that, open to hearing more women's voices. Yeah. And that's part of our what's the word, Michaela, you're good with that, part of our, it's a technical mission. There we go. So everybody, thank you for being here for 100 episodes, and we'll see you at the next episode. Lots of love. Bye.